Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I am your host Justin Freeman, 6 foot 1 inches, 278 pounds of fantasy knowledge. And thank you guys for tuning in here on the Mayo Media Network, where you'll find our Monday Night Football show here each and every week throughout the season. And you can always find our Thursday night and Sunday night football shows over on the Captain Spot YouTube channel. Just search for Captain Spot there. It'll pop right on up for you guys. So be sure you are subscribing in both places. And we'll give you all the good Showdown content all season long. So interesting game here, Saints Raiders. We're talking about a game where the Saints, despite not having Michael Thomas in this game, still 5.5 point favorites on the road. 48.5 point total in this game. That's getting on up there towards the high end of game totals. So we're expecting a little bit of offense, but there are a handful of injury situations we want to make sure we are aware of. Obviously, Michael Thomas out in this game. That's going to have a dramatic impact sort of across the board in how the targets are distributed and sort of the general offensive game plan for the Saints. It would not surprise me if they lean a little bit more run heavy than they do traditionally. They're already favorites. And so that's going to lean well for Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. Latavius Murray saw a very encouraging usage role in week one as far as terms of total rush attempts, as far as a proportion of that within the team context. On the Las Vegas side of the football, we're looking at slightly banged up but expected to play Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards. Those guys look like they should be good to go. So no major news there on the Vegas side of the football. We expect those guys to play, but as always, make sure you're checking the inactives list 90 minutes before lock and make sure that you are not playing anybody who could be considered out. And as always, there's going to be fringe guys, that wide receiver 5 or 6 who could potentially be in your lineup, especially if you're running a bunch of them. Make sure that you're weeding those guys out and reallocating some of those really thin targets throughout the course of the offense. It does make a difference. It adds up. So Saints and Raiders, how do we expect this game to flow overall? Despite not having Michael Thomas, the Saints still look like pretty clear favorites. They are on the road, so things can get weird for favorites on the road, especially in a situation where now they don't have their best player, and you do have a player like Josh Jacobs on the other side of the field who's capable of playing keep away, keeping Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, some of those guys over on the sideline. So think through those different game script flows. Obviously, Vegas still sees this as a pretty one-sided affair. The spread's above 5. That's going to be really strong in favor of the Saints. So let's don't get too cute and assume that the Raiders just walk away with it. I mean, it's possible, but make sure that we are allocating that as a proportion of our risk, making sure we are weighing that. Then the next big question becomes, what happens with those Michael Thomas targets? There's a lot of people sort of vying for those targets in the Saints offense. Obviously, Alvin Kamara becomes essentially the de facto number 1 receiver. Not surprise me at all if we start seeing a lot of Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara on the field at the same time. I know every coach in the world has said they want to get both of their good running backs on the field at the same time. The Saints may be forced into that this week with Latavius Murray sort of lined up offset of Drew Brees in the shotgun and Alvin Kamara lined up somewhere in the slot or out wide. He has that dual threat skill set. It allows them to sort of pick up and not lose a whole lot. Gives them a lot of really unique options. We may also see an increased role in Taysom Hill, another guy who sort of fills in holes like plugging holes in a boat. So the two more obvious names, I suppose, are Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith. They're the two guys who led the team in terms of usage in week one. Deontay Harris, another guy who could see a bump in targets and snaps here this week. But overall, I'm thinking Emmanuel Sanders is the guy who makes sense to sort of become the new alpha receiver. But I think Alvin Kamara is a guy that I'm just going to be more and more interested in and probably going to want to consider bumping his targets up throughout the next 24 hours as I'm working on this and continue to work up on it until lock. But overall, a lot of different ways this can go. And it's important we understand this in the context of the slate. So let's take a look at the pricing here on DraftKings. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, 11-4 in the flex for you this week, becomes the most expensive player, and deservedly so. And he's ranked just above Drew Brees. And obviously, we cannot play Michael Thomas this week. Josh Jacobs trailing just behind at 9,600. So I think the slate's priced just about the way it's supposed to. Even Emmanuel Sanders, 8,800, gets a nice little bump in the absence of Michael Thomas. So we've got to make a decision pretty quickly here. We're going to run out of cash if we try to play all of these guys. So making sure that we have a stand that we're taking. Where are those targets going to go? Does Emmanuel Sanders provide the floor and the ceiling that justifies an $8,800 price tag? I have my doubts, and I certainly am not all that interested in an $8,000 Jared Cook. I mean, we try to think about ways that we can beat this Las Vegas defense. I see an opportunity there out of the backfield. I think, getting a playmaking weapon like Alvin Kamara out in space against the linebacker crew from the Raiders, I think that's a mismatch in favor of Kamara. I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders still has enough juice in the tank to be able to pull off a high volume load, even at $8,800. And as we look at the Las Vegas side of the equation, at some of these skill positions, Josh Jacobs at 9,600, certainly very, very interesting. He's going to even outrank Derek Carr at 9,200, his own teammate. And I think as we look at slates and try to determine how many quarterbacks we want in our slate, this is a situation where we very well could be looking at a one quarterback lineup without Derek Carr in it. Especially if we're going to think that Josh Jacobs has to be a focal point of this game. And we saw Josh Jacobs involved not only on the ground, but in the air as well. This is a game that we can consider leaving Derek Carr on the sideline. You could easily tell yourself that Derek Carr may get some yardage in this game and his receivers may pile up some PPR points, but they may not find the end zone as frequently. Maybe that's where Jacobs comes in and eats away at some of those opportunities. So those are a couple different things to keep in mind there. And then Darren Waller is a perfect example of a guy who can come in, soak up a bunch of targets, and hit value without even finding the end zone, which is sort of uncommon, especially in Showdown. So overall, I think you're going to be looking at some of the value plays to get you through. Latavius Murray at 3,400 is just like absolute must-have, I believe, this week in your lineup. He's going to get used a lot. He got used a lot in week 1, and that was with a fully healthy Michael Thomas. I think as they try to get more creative with Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray is going to naturally take that next step for this order. So let's take a look at what the captain assignment distribution looks like this week. It's one of my favorite things for us to look at. Josh Jacobs looking like the favorite at captain. He's sort of outpacing Alvin Kamara there. Because he's just going to make up such a large proportion of what we expect the Raiders to do on their side of the football. There's a little more figuring out to do on the Saints side, so having that value and predictability there from Jacobs is going to be really, really helpful for us. And then as we look at our flex appearances, the model does like Derek Carr. In fact, it likes Derek Carr more than Drew Brees in this particular matchup, and part of that's got to do with price, and it allows you to fit additional guys in there. Latavius Murray, a guy who I'm probably higher on than my own personal model, so you see where he ranks out there as far as getting him into your lineup. So overall, there's a lot of different ways for you to approach this slate. I think it's going to take a combination of value guys and high-priced guys in order to pull it off well. But you got all the information you need, guys. Go out, build these lineups. Let's take down some big prizes here in Week 2, Monday Night Football. Last game we get before we start preparing for Week 3. So without any further ado, be sure to go check out the Captain Spot YouTube channel. Be sure you're subscribing over there. Be sure you're subscribing here at Mayo Media Network. Hey, that sounds better. I'm Justin Freeman, guys. You can find me on Twitter at JustinFreeman18. Talk to you soon.